Hey guys, it's Janine. Welcome back to my channel. Please let's take a moment for the death of the sun as I live in Canada and we're now going into the months of darkness. Just kidding. It still gets light here, but I now have to use artificial light and so it really does feel like the sun has died. So sad. Let's just cue this intro before I make it any more awkward, shall we? Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today is my November wrap-up, so we're going through the books that I have read this month. Some of them I'm going to go more in-depth into in other video segments, either for reader recommendations or for Janean's rereads. Overall, I'm very happy with the amount of reading that I did this month. I got in 11 books. Don't ask me how, I'm not sure of it myself. Kind of at the end of every month, I look at my total and I'm like, really? Did I actually? Because my brain is like, did you actually read books? And apparently Goodreads says I did. So that's pretty awesome. Before we get into content, I want to take a minute to shout out our candle of the day. The candle for today's video is The Northern Lights by Alchemy Ink. Okay, so here we are, Northern Lights, little bit of glare. I can't hold it exactly straight, apparently. Beautiful cover with the Aurora Borealis. This was a His Dark Materials inspired candle that Natalie did. Natalie is on Instagram at Alchemy Ink. She does some bomb candles. And if you want to get some of her candles, good luck. People virtually stab each other online because it's so hard to get her candles, but they are amazing. I don't know if I'll ever burn this because this smells of cool mint, vanilla, and sugared snow, and honestly, it is one of the most perfect smells I have ever smelled in my life, which sounds so crazy, but it's so true. Like, I could just sit here all video sniffing it, and then you'd think I'm weirder than I already am, but that's just the way it goes. So yeah, the Northern Lights candle from Alchemy Ink. Be sure to check Natalie out. And honestly, I love her products. She is one of my 3 favorite candle companies, and if you're lucky enough to get one of her candles, seriously, well done to you, and I know that you will likely enjoy it. All right, let's get into what we're actually here for. Books. I read 11 books this month. Out of those 11 books, only one of them was actually a physical book. So I was either reading ebooks or listening to audiobooks this month, and that really helped me because I would listen to them on my commute to and from work. Doing morning shifts, I would stay awake a little bit and then I would listen while I'm doing the other chores throughout the day. It's unfortunate that, I could listen to an audiobook while I'm doing these videos, but that would be really, really strange and probably have some copyright issues. So yeah, that's kind of where my reading was this month. I'm thinking December might be similar in that I have audiobooks that I'm getting through. I do have an ebook or 2 as well that I know I'm going to be tackling, but I think it's going to be more physical books. Do I know that for sure? No, of course not, because I am not someone who follows my TBR even though I make one. Yay! Okay, so let's go through the books that I read. I have my phone up for Goodreads because otherwise I'd forget them, but in chronological order, I read Fushigi Yugi, Volume 15, Volume 16, Volume 17, and Volume 18. That brings the Fushigi Yugi, the mysterious play, to a close. There were 18 volumes in that manga series, and I think I will do a more in-depth video about that series. I did overall really enjoy them, however, the last 3 volumes were kind of a separate storyline to the first 15, and I will say the first 15 volumes I felt overall were stronger than the last 3 volumes, but again, I'll get into that in my deep dive. Next, I had Good Omens, which is by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Of course, it is a TV series, I think on Amazon, which I do want to watch because I tend to like David Tennant. I'm just not sure if or when I will actually be able to get to that because I don't actually have an Amazon account, so we'll see. The next book that I read was the first book in a series, and it's definitely going to have its own segment, and that is Pucked by Helena Hunting. To the friends that I know who read this and loved this, I'm really sorry. Not on the same page. Not at all. It's not going to be a nice review, so you may want to skip out on that one, love, if you are watching my videos. Next up, we had Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I also think I will do a deep dive into this one. This is a book that I really feel did not live up to the hype. Oops. Next one was The Starless Sea. I am not going to go into a deep dive into this one because I don't even know where to begin with it. Another disappointing read. I had 2 disappointing reads, well, 3 actually, back to back. Yeah. And I didn't want to read the rest of the month after those books, but I forced myself to. And I'm glad I did because there were some better stories coming up. The next book was Naturally Tan by Tan France, so that's his story from Queer Eye. Overall, I really did like this book. It was very interesting to see where Tan came from. However, I do find that sometimes he's a little bit presumptuous or entitled in some of the things he says, which is interesting because I think it's at a direct conflict with other parts of his identity. That being said, I am not one to pass judgment. We are, like, on someone's personal life, I am here to pass judgment on books. That's kind of why people watch. But as it goes, I thought it was really awesome to learn more about his story, to learn more about him. Overall, I enjoyed it. There were some parts that I really, really identified with, which I think speaks to how, you know, there may be differences, but overall there are a lot of things that unite us as people in this world. I did enjoy his book. There were moments when I cried, so he described going to the casting for Queer Eye and how he didn't bring an object with him, but he had his wedding ring and he talked about the significance and how that was all that he needed to keep with him and what it signified and represented. And I started bawling in the car when I was listening to that because that is exactly how I feel about my husband. And it was so wonderful to hear that verbalized and know that other people think that too. The only physical book that I read this month, and I'm lucky I still have it because it's a library book, is The Tiger in the Well by Philip Pullman. You guys have been here a little while. You probably know that I am obsessed with Philip Pullman. Honestly, this book is one of the reasons why. My gosh, I mean, this guy's a mastercraft at what he does. I want to just spend my whole Christmas vacation with him when I'm in the UK, which I know will never happen, but I could just pick his brain and listen to him tell stories for hours because they're so good. They're so freaking good. Now, this book is the 3rd book in a series. I can't remember the predecessors. I think there was Shadow in the North, and there was another one, the first book. I can't remember it. But I've read these 3 this year, or maybe I read one last year. They're so good. There is a 4th book where Sally, who is our main character in the first 3 books, is actually not the main character in the 4th book, and I'm really sad, but I'm hoping to buy this series when I'm in the UK at Christmas time because I really, really, really enjoyed the first 3 books that much. The way that Pullman weaves his storylines together for these Victorian era mystery books, phenomenal. Honestly, I cannot recommend this series enough. So after Tiger in the Well, I then read Pucked Up, which is book number 2 in the Pucked series. If you thought it got better, it was only marginally so. And like the smallest margin possible. I'm not even going to do a review of Pucked Up because when I talked about Pucked, I hope that will be enough for you. I hope you'll be satisfied and entertained. Not good. So that was actually the last book of the month that I read, Pucked Up. I only sped through it because it was due back to the library on ebook. So I didn't speed through it because I loved it, but because of time constraints, which was actually also the same with Ninth House. Yeah. Overall, if I had to weigh up this month in terms of was it a good reading month, was it a bad reading month, numbers-wise, it was a great reading month. The numbers can't lie, right? 11 books in a month is pretty frickin' solid. That being said, out of the 11 books that I read this month, I would say I quite enjoyed 3 of them, which would be Tiger in the Well, Naturally Tan, and Good Omens. Other than that, I had 8 flops. Maybe not full flops. Some were definitely worse than others, but it was a hard month to get through, reading-wise. So that's kind of where we are. I guess November was mediocre reading month for me. We will see how December goes. To wrap up this video, I want to know, have you read any of these books before? What were your thoughts on them? It's totally okay if you would disagree with me. I will not be offended unless you are being offensive. I am someone who does believe that everyone has differences in opinion. We all have differences in taste. And as long as we communicate that respectfully, I don't see any problem with that. That's kind of what we're here to do, is to generate conversations, see how we feel, how we differ, and what makes a book great to one person doesn't necessarily make it great to another, and that's okay. Okay, so I guess the takeaway message for you today, to leave you on a positive note, is that being able to constantly self-evaluate and monitor not only ourselves but our surroundings, whether that be our physical surroundings, our peers, etc., is such an important skill to craft and to develop throughout your life. Honestly, once you take a look at the things that are holding you back from being the best version of yourself, and you have the time to grieve letting them go and moving on, the freedom that comes afterward is so incredibly immense. And sometimes we feel stung because those things might leave us instead, whether we're let go from a job, passed over for a promotion. And sometimes we don't realize how freeing those things can be. Don't get me wrong, sometimes it's unfair, it's awful, but there are people in my life who always told me, sometimes when these great, big, amazing things that we think we need in our lives pass over us, it's because there's something better waiting around the corner. And even though it might not feel like it right now, and you might feel like an absolute dumpster fire, because trust me, that's exactly where I was in September of this year, it will and it can get better. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel at that point in time, but I'm in the sunshine now. It might be fake sunshine because it's dark outside, because it's winter, but metaphorically speaking, I have stepped into the light, I have made it through that tunnel, I've gotten to the other side, and I'm going up on an upward trajectory. Is it where I thought I would be? Not necessarily, but I'm so happy to be part of the journey. And sometimes we just need to recalibrate how we think and go, okay, that wasn't for me. What's the next thing? So always be open to those opportunities and just feel the weight lifted off your shoulders and your chest, and how free and open your heart is, knowing that those things that you didn't need and that were actually being poisonous are gone. It's one of the best feelings in the world. So that's all I've got for you today. Hit me up in the comments below letting me know what your favorite reads of November were, or if you had a kind of duddish month like I did. It happens. Not every book is going to be amazing, but we'll find them together. Until next time, I hope you guys stay amazing, because that's what you are, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Spoiler alert, it will be in my December TBR list, and I'll probably be wearing the exact same outfit. All good. Have a great one, guys. So thankful for you being here, and keep going onwards and upwards.